So thank you. So amazing to all of you participants. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning from wherever you're dialing in today. So as we are celebrating the Women in Cybersecurity Beyond Borders, yes, initiated by CyberX team, we from WISP team here are bringing in this interesting panel members who are not just the eminent leaders or industry experts, but they also have a great passion towards promoting the gender diversity and empowering the women in technology. Now, before I begin this discussion, a quick introduction about myself. So, I am here, Archana here today. I'm been into this 14 years of the industry, and my domain expert is basically security operations center. So, I'm looking forward with all these industry experts to listen from the different aspects of cybersecurity here. And I'm glad that I'm part of WISP as a mentor. So that's where, hi to the WISP team here, if there's anybody over here. So hi, Shaileja, if you're here. And today, I'm going to be moderator for your sessions. And I call this session, this panel is to be very unique panel. The reason, I loved, when I heard that, the panel experts. Now, why I call it unique is basically when we talk about the cybersecurity, initially the thought process that comes to our mind is compliance, risk, and big data. And it's so glad that we have the industry expert from all of these and who are going to talk today about what is the next big thing that we are looking forward in the cybersecurity world. Now, before I begin the session, let me give a quick introduction to all of the panelists over here. So we begin with Swapnil. Swapnil, maybe you can just raise your hand so that people can just look you. So Swapnil has 20 plus years of technology, research, and managerial experience. She's presently working as Principal Technical Officer in Big Data Analytics Group at CDAC Bangalore. She has effectively contributed to various research projects, mission mode projects, turnkey projects, and have done various consultancies for the client organizations such as METI, UIDAI, EPFO, BEL, SET India, and international agencies. She's also done few of the international publications. She's currently pursuing her PhD in the area of big data and security from IIT Bangalore. The focus of her research is basically the amalgamation of security and privacy in the emerging Indian healthcare landscape. So we welcome you today, Swapnil, and we are looking forward to talk a bit about the big data, which is emerging technology. Next, we move on to Seema. Seema, maybe you want to tell hi to the audiences over here so they can recognize you. So Seema comes with 14 plus years experience in information security and risk management with the leading management consulting SaaS-based and fintech companies like McKinsey, C-Event, and PayU. During her professional journey, Seema has developed competencies in various information domains like risk management, DevSecOps, business resiliency, data privacy, mind-blowing cloud security, security engineering operations. I think we have all the list of domains here, Seema, for you. Seema is also a firm supporter of promoting and empowering the women in technology and security, and she has also taken various initiatives to mentor and coach the young women professionals to excel in this field. So we welcome you, Seema, today. Next, we move on to Shilpa. Shilpa, we wanted to say hi to the people over here. So Shilpa,
Everyone,
so Shilpa is a regional security manager for British Telecom, India and Asia. Over her 14 years of experience, she has worked with Oracle India and Wipro Technologies in the diverse field ranging from network security operations, infrastructure security, information risk, audit strategies and governance, and stakeholder management. She strengthens her understanding of these fields with accreditation of CISSP, CISM, and DCPLA. She is a firm believer in promoting gender diversity, inclusion, and culture of cybersecurity, basically. So she's a director of membership of ISC Squared Bangalore chapter and wants to enable a safer online environment for people of all age groups. So we welcome you, Shilpa, and we are looking forward to, to listen to you because it's very interesting. All of us, all the panelists here, we have all the expertise here. So before we jump on to the questions, I request the audiences here. Now that you know the background of all each one of them, just think about what is your top of the mind questions. So as and when we have the panel members speaking about it, we could take the questions. So let's begin with Seema. So let's begin. What I have today for you is basically because I'm from Security Operations Center, I always roam around with the cyber threats, and not just today. Everybody is wondering the threat increase that we have in. But we would like you to give us a little glimpse about how does this go with financial services because what are the emerging challenges with the cyber fraud that is also getting raised in the financial sectors. Would you like to start on that, Seema? Over to you. So Seema, we can't hear you, you're on mute.
Oops.
Yeah.
Thank you, Archana, for such a wonderful introduction. Financial institutions, as you know, have always been an obvious target for cyber crimes, as they are the treasure trove for personal financial data. And in their quest for growth and cost optimization, financial organizations are now adopting newer web-based, mobile-based, cloud-based solutions, which has introduced new vulnerabilities and complexities into their entire technology ecosystem, and certainly has heightened the level of cyber risk. And with this ongoing pandemic situation, this global shift to remote working has created a hotbed for cybercrime activity. And the use of the latest and sophisticated technologies by cyber criminal has upped the level of challenge faced by boards today in combating some of the cyber frauds, like synthetic identity fraud, which uses the technologies like deepfake to create videos and images and audio recordings that have been distorted to present an individual saying or doing something that they did not say or do. And these deepfake identities are then used to subvert the customer onboarding process, facilitate fraudulent account creation for money laundering, authorize payments and transfer fraudulently. And certainly the traditional anti-fraud measures can't keep up with these new tactics. The other kind of challenge, Archana, is the broadened attack surface due to the interdependent supply chain. So financial organizations seldom work in silos. They have a very complex and interdependent supply chain. And this trend of outsourcing, offshoring, and contract with third parties, which is usually driven by business cost reduction objective, has enabled financial institutions to work in boundaryless ecosystem, which has further diluted the institutional control over IT systems and access points. And as they say, that security is only as strong as the weakest link. So it's important that financial institutions exercise due diligence in evaluating security risk associated with the third, fourth, or even fifth parties that they contract to ensure that they have security controls in place to handle sensitive data. Other than that, the other challenge financial organization faces data theft and data manipulation. And these are carried out by malactors by exploiting the financial system vulnerabilities to either sell it in the dark web, encrypt it for ransom, modify or destroy it for breeding distrust or driving some political agenda. And as maintaining the privacy of its customer and security of its confidential data is non-negotiable for financial institutions, it's very important that their systems are regularly hardened and they follow a layered defense approach to protect the data. And the other type of frauds are account takeovers, and closely related to it is the credential and identity theft, which remains to be the cornerstone for targeted attacks and frauds. And fraudsters use techniques like social engineering, phishing attacks, malwares to exploit vulnerabilities associated with human behavior. And hence, raising cybersecurity awareness among your employees and customer is a key to reduce the risk associated with such fraud. And as you said, with this ever evolving threat landscape, business defenses with a very comprehensive and a resilient approach is the only way to manage security effectively.
Sure. Thanks, Seema. So, I think you touched upon various aspects, right? You talked about the account manager, the identity theft, supply chain. So, what comes into my mind is while we all as an enterprise, in various sectors, it could be health and the financial that you really brought in the insights. One of the questions, which goes, I think this would be something for Shilpa, because you come from a compliance expert. Now, as Seema was talking about, with this all these cyber fraud that is getting ever increased in the fintech, basically the fintech services, what you are seeing as the greatest challenge being a compliance expert, because we are all today here in the remote working, as Seema rightly pointed it out. How do you think the companies are adaptive, towards this compliance? So could you share some insights around that, Shilpa?
Sure, Archana. And I think Seema has summarized it so well for the financial sectors. She called out a lot of common pain areas that we also from the other IT organizations, not only from financial sectors, but other organizations are also facing. In fact, if you pick up anybody from threat intel teams today, they will say that no 2 weeks have been same in the last 1 year. I mean, we recently called out that we've had 1 year of working from home. So cybercrime definitely has changed, and towards the dark side. While it was an equal competition where we were targeting large government entities and corporations who actually have the state of art infrastructure and technology, and not to mention the skill set to protect their boundaries. But now it has come down to preying on schools and municipal departments, right? And we've seen targets made out of school children, and not only people who just want to go about their daily lives. If you pick up maybe a CrowdStrike or a Sophos threat intel report, it will easily tell you that the number of intrusion attempts, mainly in terms of phishing, has surpassed more number of intrusion attempts in the entire half of 2020, more than it was in the entire of 2019. So that is the scale of intrusion attempts that we're talking about. So I think we just acknowledge that we finished 1 year of working from home, right? So when you look at everybody starting from contact center personnel to people who handle delicate information working from home. In fact, contact center industries, I'm sure they've not even baked in working from home scenarios in their business continuity plans because they're simply not allowed to work from home with such confidential information, right? So all of them, we all do agree that they've all been, put from their comfortable corporate firewall network safety to the home, and this has been a very abrupt change, right? So without a doubt, this is a very vulnerable crowd that we're speaking about. Okay, so phishing attacks definitely have found their base. And of course, with tools like MS Defenders, I must acknowledge that corporates did step up and devise remote working scenarios. But how do you ensure that you have accurate or a scenario or a solution covering all these different kinds of data processors, right, when working from home? We definitely hit a peak of phishing emails somewhere around July and August. And because of the nervousness of individuals, a lot of fake government portals also were things that people were falling prey to. In fact, as latest as Feb 2021, we saw a fake vaccination registration website, which had mirrored the Ministry of Health and Welfare of the government, right? And that was a portal that was busted and blocked. So these exploits will continue to rise, colleagues. It will continue to rise because they will continue to exploit that behavioral weakness in human aspect of understanding cybersecurity, and that we will see. Um, at the same time, I think Seema also touched upon organized crime groups, right? In fact, if you go down to dark web, you will see ransomware as a service being offered as a proper service catalog for as much as or as less as $750. They're ready to do all sorts of wreckage on the corporate network, and you'll have a complete information or a detailed description of the encryption strength type that they can tackle, the kind of systems they can infiltrate and conquer. And also, I think the trend that has set on in the dark world is something called as a big game hunting, right? Where you slowly infiltrate the system by exposing a particular weakness, and then you laterally move, covering all the systems by escalating privileges one by one. And once they've found all the valued systems, they launch a combined ransomware attack on the estate. And the aim of that is just to cripple the system. So the organizations have no choice but to pay up. So that is big game hunting for you, right? But what the fact or the crux of that remains, colleagues, is that no matter what the threat landscape, right, the 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 same vulnerabilities of human aspect are being exploited. Yes, of course, 0-day product vulnerabilities is something that we cannot fix, but the reasons for exploitation are becoming very repetitive. It is always somebody who has put in a default admin password, or somebody who has put in a weak admin password, somebody who has decided to delay a software update on the systems, somebody who has decided to print off confidential information from home, or somebody who didn't fix a broken access control to a room where people are still working from home and it's a confidential room. So the only answer to that is, I think, to develop a very strong culture, a behavioral cybersecurity culture, and safe practices for employees. And it has to be muscle memory, and it has to be something that you get into the habit of doing. And you have to do it not only for your regular employees, you have to do it for your supply chain, you have to do it for your vendors, you have to do it for your housekeeping staff and your on-ground physical security staff as well. So, when we build this kind of relationship with our immediate family in the organization, and you try to bring all of them under the policy and awareness umbrella, that is, I think, that's the only way we can comfortably share these indicators of compromise or breach notifications, and to collectively we'll be able to defend this estate better. That's my opinion on this, actually. Thank you.
Yeah, Shilpa. So I think it's interesting that you brought in the concepts about, how to deal also. You touched upon, it's a behavioral aspect of things that we will have to do. It's not just about the product bringing in stuff like that. So, but it's interesting, because you and Seema had been talking about the ever increasing about the cyber threat landscape, and the phishing is being the toppest because it's kinds of trying to exploit the human emotions. They take, as you rightly talked about, the fake COVID vaccine stuff. Now, I think this is where, Swapnil, you could bring in the technology aspect of things over here, because it really doesn't matter about which industry sector we're talking about. And big data is definitely the hottest top when we talk about, how are you going to bring these capabilities of big data analytics into to improve the cybersecurity aspect, and particularly how do you improve the threat detections over here? Would you like to, talk from the technology front, Swapnil?
Sure, Archana. Sure. And thanks for the introduction. And I'll be answering to your question from enterprise service ecosystem perspective. Seema also spoke about finance ecosystem. In the recent times, we all have observed there has been a fundamental shift from centralized enterprise application towards distributed enterprise service ecosystems. Now, these ecosystems, they comprises loosely coupled, inter-organization, distributed, and heterogeneous components, who seamlessly they interact with each other. Now, these ecosystem components, they span across data centers, cloud environment, and Internet of Things. Now, some of the real world examples of these enterprise service ecosystems are Aadhaar authentication ecosystem, smart cities, and healthcare ecosystem. These are the emerging ecosystems. Now, if we look at the cyber attack trend, which Shilpa and Seema, they both spoke about, if we look at this trend, we see an increase in the number of attack, the frequency of attack, the complexity, and also the intensity of impact caused or the damage caused by these attacks. Okay. And now these emerging ecosystems, they add on to the security concerns, as in the distributed nature of the ecosystem. It has broadened the attack surface. It has also exposed new significant vulnerabilities. Okay. Now, what is the role, that question that you asked, what is the role that big data analytics can play in this scenario? So big data analytics, as you all know, it is processing and analyzing huge volumes of data, which are emerging continuously from wide variety of data sources. This analysis can be performed either on the history or the past data, or it can also be done on the fly, as in when the data is getting generated. Okay. So now enterprises, they collect a lot of security related data, like application log, system log, network packets, and even the behavior, what Shilpa was talking about, one can find by the logs of the events performed by the end users. Now, but the issue here is that the existing security solutions, for them, it is overwhelming to analyze such huge amount of data, which though it is stored, but they cannot process and analyze such huge amount of data. And this diminishing organizational boundaries because of the ecosystem, it is making most of these traditional security solutions misfit for in the ecosystem scenario. What big data analytics can do is it can help to correlate these security related data which emerge from different data sources, find some kind of a correlation, identify some kind of attack patterns, or even perform something like behavioral analysis of the insiders or the end users. And this could be an input. This could be an input for identifying vulnerabilities, unknown vulnerabilities. It could be also be input for threat analysis that you mentioned, Archana, and which would eventually, which it would lead to design and development of appropriate cybersecurity solutions. So I call here, a big data analytics as, we can compare big data analytics, what it does with the Greek god Janus, who can look in the past as well as forward. Okay, so big data analytics can analyze, identify the patterns from the past data, which can help in forensic analysis and identifying the targeted attacks, and it can also help in performing real-time analytics for early detection of any attack or abnormal behavior. So here, I would like to conclude by saying that big data analytics, it would act as an enabler. It would act as an enabler for futuristic cybersecurity solutions.
Thanks, Swapnil. So it's really interesting because as you talked on the models of how the big data is going to help the kind of combat against these cyber threats, right? And it's interesting because I would like to jump into the next questions also around with you, because you have done a various research in amalgamation of security and privacy, right? And
Yeah,
privacy is definitely the one of the biggest thing that we are talking about. So,
yeah.
what are your thoughts around, what is your research currently going on? If it's okay to kind of share in a small words around it, what's that you're looking as?
Yeah, sure. See, I basically the area of research is big data security and privacy. So I started with both. It's there, security and privacy. And the literature, which the literature survey which I had done in the initial days. So I can say that big data security and privacy is basically, it's an umbrella term which is used to define, or to umbrella term used for the need of novel platforms, techniques for big data for security, B, security for big data, and privacy protection. So big data for security, what we discussed, that big data can be used for cybersecurity solutions. And there have been many such initiatives like Snort, Apache Metron, which help in, which are like cybersecurity frameworks. Then security for big data, Apache Atlas, Apache Ranger, which are used for securing the data which is stored in the Hadoop ecosystem. Then there have been various initiatives in privacy preservation, say secure multi-party computation, and most popularly used notice and consent, and also the privacy compliance, which is used most frequently. Now, my research is again coming back to the ecosystem. There's a lot of personal data which is stored in the ecosystem. If you take healthcare ecosystem, you have the health records, demographic details, even in the smart cities. And in these ecosystems, the data is collected, this personal data or the sensitive data, it is collected, it is processed, it is stored, it is analyzed and shared with the external entities. So it's not just, the idea here is, it's not just important to develop the security controls in this distributed scenario. And yeah, these the data in the healthcare ecosystem, or be it smart cities, they have the big data characteristics. So it's not just to develop the security controls for, say, to prevent tampering of data in transit, or maintaining the consistency of data in the distributed environment, or detect any kind of abnormal behavior in the distributed environment, or even maintaining the unique uh, identity of the end user across the ecosystem. Since here we are processing, storing the personal data, so it's not just security controls. What is important is also to build the privacy measures. Okay. So far, what we have observed is that in any organization, security and privacy, they move as a parallel stream. And what I am working on is how they can be converged, how we can have a common ground for both of them. So in the enterprise service ecosystem, it is important not only to secure, but also come up with the privacy protection mechanism, which work, I mean, an amalgamation, like a solution, a fusion of both, which takes care of the security and privacy of data across the data lifecycle in the ecosystem.
Yep, yep. So I think it's interesting thing that you brought about how the security and privacy, rather than being a parallel zones that today that we are
Yeah.
operating, the model has to get converged.
Yes.
So that's interesting, Swapnil. Thanks for that. And in meantime, audience, if you have any questions, please post over here. We have a great, today is your day to be because we're talking about what's next big thing in the cybersecurity. So we are happy here to take any questions that you have. So, as we are talking about the next big thing, coming back to you, Shilpa, could you state just in one line, what do you think about how the cybersecurity and compliance should really work together? Probably just a minute statement of how do you think should be there?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you're asking for one line, I'll give you one word. They just need to talk to each other. So I think sharing compliance requirements with the security team would be job one, right? They are the people at the defending gates, so they will not bother about churning up those milestones of documentation or preserving the evidence unless they know what they have to do, right? And the compliance team has a lot of things to comply with. They have to comply with third party contracts, they have to comply with the regulations, data laws, all of that, right? And they have to fill and they have to do that by producing the evidence. So I think the only way to do that is join hands, right? build a solution in such a way that you are able to communicate to the security team what is required to comply with each control, how the auditors will look at a particular evidence, how you can retain that trail of evidence and say, hey, this is how I comply with a certain control, right? And you can automate these things. You can come up with calendarizing the asks. There are certain ways that now you have teams and a lot of collaborative platforms where you can actually preserve these things. And I think with that, both the teams together can pass that audit and check those boxes.
Wonderful, wonderful, Shilpa. So, that's great to hear that. So, I do have one last questions because, we are yet, haven't got anything from the participants. Yes, but I do have a very interesting question because we have all women leaders over here, right? And you all have been promoting, and empowering the women in your technology. Now, as we talk about the cybersecurity next big thing, yes, of course, the technology, no matter, is going to be there. But I want a little bit touch upon also one thing, one word that you would like to give. What's the next thing around the diversity inclusion in the cybersecurity that you are expecting a big change? So, Seema, over to you. Would you like to just share, a single word? What is that change is going to look for us as a women leaders?
It looks bright, Archana, from where I see it. That's what we've been promoting for so many years. When I used to run these program, I kind of divided this in three stages. That we have to have diversity right from the hiring to growing, and then to retaining, right? So diversity has to be maintained, has to be kept going at all these three stages. And I do see that there's a lot of inclination from leadership, and there's a lot of sponsorships coming in to take this baton forward. And I'm really happy to see industry moving toward this trend.
Great to hear that we as a women leaders do have a lot of things coming up because we have always been all the years we have been talking, we do not have two women's, but now it's the time to say that we already have two women's. What is the next step that we have to grow in, right? So amazing. Shilpa, do you want to add something to that?
I think we've taken the right step this year, right? The choose to challenge itself has said that we've recognized the problem. We do not speak unless we are being spoken to, right? So the very theme that we are choosing to challenge these biases or these gender diversity inclusion topics, that itself speaks that we are on the right path, right? And future in the future, I mean, we need the men also in the conversation. I think we're so obsessed with the diversity inclusion that we've excluded the men from the conversation, right? So I think that needs to happen more participation from the men, and then that becomes an equal platform. Archana.
Yeah, thanks, Shilpa. So, thank you all, Seema. I think one thing which I wanted to do, there are three S over here: Seema, Shilpa, and Swapnil. So, I would like to say your success security stories. Look, I would like to take the theme in that way.
Good
So,
one.
thank you. Yeah, yes, Swapnil, you want to? Okay.
Uh,
So, okay, so thank you, CyberX team, for having us, launched, and thanks to the WISP team that we are today here, having this eminent industry experts talking about. So, looking forward for an exciting next panel discussions. See
Thank
you
you
yes.
so
all.
much for having us.
Thank you
Thank
all.
you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.